Hello and welcome to the OP Overwatch podcast. I'm your host Jam and I'm joined by my co-host Jeff. How you doing, man?
Hey, what's up, man? I am fantastic. How are you?
About the same. Been pretty busy all in all, but really excited about this new Overwatch patch we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, man. I have to say I was expecting a Halloween patch, and they did not disappoint. There's definitely some quality content in this one. What have you thought about it so far?
Oh, man, I've been really, really happy with this particular one. You know, I, of course, expected skins and the voice lines and things, but the new Brawl that they added is absolutely amazing. And we'll definitely get to that, but I do want to cover some of the more general and, even more importantly, some of the character balancing that happened. There were not a whole lot of changes, but a few minute changes and a rebalancing of a few characters that I feel are pretty significant.
Yeah. The first one, I mean, we had kind of gotten a heads up that they were going to tweak Ana a little bit, mostly as a result of the comps they were seeing, I think, and the tank-heavy comps that were giving Ana a nano boost too quickly. So we saw a 20% increase in the nano boost charge cost, but to offset taking that away from her a little bit, they expanded the radius of Biotic Grenade from 3 to 4 meters. So they think that overall the net is balancing out, but it won't be quite as conducive to the tank-heavy comps. What do you think about those changes? Does that seem like it's going to accomplish what it was supposed to and keep Ana viable?
Yeah, I actually think that these particular changes are a perfect example of what I had been saying before, where, you know, we're not only going to see straight-up buffs or nerfs to characters. There's a lot of the times where, and I believe that their comment on Ana specifically was that they feel that she is in a good place, but they felt that her ultimate really was coming a little too often, and I'd have to agree. I'd say it was up pretty much all the time. So them increasing that cost 20%, that's not too much of a difference. It's, you know, I would think maybe about 2 or 3 shots, whether it be 3 heals or 3 attacks, to kind of get to your ult a little slower than before. But I really, really like the idea of them expanding the range and radius of her Biotic Grenade, mostly because it is a really, really unique and cool attack. It's a great way to kind of expand its effectiveness and not only use it, you know, to keep your team alive, but simultaneously, you know, depending on the situation, be able to use it more as a damage dealer to affect other enemy teams that are maybe a little too closely bunched together. And I feel like we're going to see a lot more of that with this, just that 1 meter. 1 meter doesn't seem like a lot, but I think that, you know, 3 to 4 meters and radius will make a big difference. So it remains to be seen, but I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I think, I mean, the key is that it's radius, so it's a meter in every direction. I mean, 20% increased, it's notable to the nano boost, but it was coming up really fast. You're right about that. And I mean, I don't think it's going to be a huge deal. But the radius of the Biotic Grenade, I mean, you're right. It's a very unique ability, and I think that the more people get comfortable using it offensively, the more powerful it becomes. On top of that, I mean, this isn't necessarily going to help your team win or lose, but I've always been a little bit bitter as someone who plays Ana a lot that it's almost impossible to get a play of the game with her. So I've always kind of thought, like, in my head, that the ideal way to make that happen would be to just happen upon, like, a 2 or 3 kill Biotic Grenade. And so this makes that a more realistic possibility.
Yeah, you didn't see anything in the patch about any adjustments to the play of the game system, similar to what we saw with Mercy more recently. But we have mentioned in the past that, Ana doesn't really seem to get the play of the game love that some of the other characters get. And in, you know, my particular case, and I'm sure you as well, I've seen very few, if any, play of the games with Ana. So with a character that's very much utilized as more of a healer in a lot of comps, you know, she doesn't have a res like Mercy does. So unless you're doing massive damage to the enemies and maybe taking out a bunch of people at once, you probably won't see it a whole lot. So that might even be, you know, changed with this increase in the radius. But all in all, I think it really just kind of fleshes out her character a little more without, you know, I haven't really been hearing cries of overpowered or, you nerfed her. People seem generally happy with her. And I've played with her quite a bit on this patch as well. And she definitely still gets her nano boost. It doesn't feel slow at all. So it seems like a pretty good balance.
Yeah, actually, I remember you talking about that Mercy change a couple episodes ago when Ben was kind enough to fill in for me. But if I had been on the episode, I would have told you that it was ridiculous because Mercy's res is always the play of the game because it's the best ult in the game. And it's countering probably 2 or 3 other ults. So
yeah, it is pretty amazing.
I guess people get tired of seeing it all the time, but it was getting play of the game more often because it's actually a more impactful play. But that's besides the point. But you're right that Anna, it's almost impossible to get play of the game with her. I got one, and it was one of those ones where like you don't even know why it happened. Like it was an accidental play of the game. But,
like maybe 4 seconds of you running and doing nothing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I killed one person, but they were ulting. But, I'm just surprised because you've mentioned previously how you expect Blizzard to write these magical algorithms that are going to save the world and make everyone happy.
It's happening. People are happy. Look at this patch. Things are moving in that direction.
Well, I guess it's safe to say that Widowmaker players are going to be a little bit happier with this patch. She's another character that got some love. What'd you think about that change?
Yeah, just a little bit. I agree. So for Widowmaker, what they did is they reduced her scoping in animation on her main weapon from 0.5 seconds to 0.33. So we're talking about a fraction of a second here. But basically, when you hit that alternate fire to zoom into your scope, it is going to happen just a little bit quicker, which, like you said, Widowmaker players are really going to enjoy that because it basically adds that just slightly crisper, faster time to be able to zoom in and make the snipe happen a little quicker. They've played with it in the past. I think they've adjusted it to kind of rebalance her. But I think the key thing with Widowmaker is that as a sniper, as we've mentioned in the past, that is a kit that people are very, very familiar with just in FPSs in general. So it's kind of a hard line to ride when you're talking about keeping the character balanced as far as Overwatch goes and all the different characters, but also just how effective a sniper is in general. So I think that this might not be the last change we're going to see to Widowmaker. It's one of those things where whether we see it on the PTR or just every few patches, it's going to be something that'll constantly be adjusted based on new characters that are added, new maps, etc. But yeah, if you're a Widowmaker player, this is definitely good news.
Yeah, I'm interested to get in game and get a little more hands-on time with it. I mean, as you know, Widow used to play where you scoped in and out every shot, and that was considered the way to play her correctly or maximize her ability. And then they increased the scoping time, and it was no longer a good option to do that. And that's right around the same time that everyone stopped playing Widow. So I may have mentioned before, my personal preference is to not have a Widow on the other team just because I prefer Overwatch to be a little bit more fast-paced, close quarters. And so I get irritated fighting against a Widow, so I'm a little bit worried about this change. But at the same time, when you have a character in the game that's being selected barely at all, that's clearly a problem. So I'm not surprised to see them try and make her a little bit more responsive, I guess, or feel a little bit quicker. I don't know if this is a full reverting back to what it used to be. I don't think it is. But again, I'm going to have to get on and play around with it a little bit more and see if it makes her feel like she did before, where, she's just really quick, and if you've got the aim, you can just wipe out a whole other team. But I know Hanzo had been buffed recently, obviously, and he kind of came onto the scene a little bit more, and that didn't do Widow any favors. So where do you think the sniper hierarchy stands now as far as who's better, who's more fun to play? I guess you could include Anna in that too if you want, or you could not because she's clearly the most fun to play.
Yeah, well, if we're going to just keep it between Widowmaker and Hanzo, just as a personal preference, I always enjoy Hanzo just a little more. Sniping is generally not my playstyle. However, if you are going to do it, why not do it as a archer ninja? So I have a lot of fun playing him. But like I said, in general, I'm not a huge sniper. So I think a change like this is really going to affect your Widowmaker mains and people who are super, super familiar with the timing of the character, where that fraction of a second is really going to make a difference. But all in all, I really think that, and I really hope that as time goes on, we really see a clear line difference between Hanzo and Widowmaker. I mean, they're already so different from each other already, but I'd like them to be different enough where, you know, you don't feel like there is one better sniper than another. It just is, as we always say with every other character, it's very situational. It's what you're trying to achieve. I think that Hanzo is still a lot more fun to play just mobility-wise and being able to switch from close range to long range and still do a great amount of damage with no fall-off. However, Widowmaker, I think it still takes the cake when it comes to your super long-range fights. And if anything, if we're talking just raw sniping, I feel she is definitely probably going to be the most effective if you can utilize her to her maximum potential. But even in saying that, I feel a great Hanzo player can achieve similar results with, you know, the same skill level. So it really, really just depends on player style and preference.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I agree with you that Hanzo is probably a little bit better at like medium and short range, and you know, the wall climb can be useful, but I think the grapple hook is probably a better mobility tool. Granted, it has a cooldown. I think even though they increased the projectile speed, Hanzo still feels frustrating to me, just because it still feels a little bit wonky, where like you're moving right and the target's moving left, and like you just, I don't know, it just never quite feels right. So I do appreciate how crisp Widow plays. I'm not a great Widow player, but every like 1 out of 5 games, I'll get like a muscle memory reversion to like Counter-Strike 1.6, where I'll just go on like a 15-player like headshot kill streak. But I can't replicate it. I can't do it consistently, so I try not to play her too much.
Well, you got to realize, too, and I know that you do, is that, you know, the hit scan is such a huge difference. And to those maybe new to the terminology or our podcast, hit scan is the terminology used when the second you hit that trigger, the projectile basically instantly travels across. There's no travel time, and it basically, whatever your reticle is on at that moment, you know, the shot hits immediately. Whereas with a character like Hanzo, there's travel time with the arrow, and you kind of have to lead your targets a little more. I think a lot of that wonkiness will probably comes from that fundamental difference between the two characters, which I kind of like, because it, you know, even though they're both snipers, like I was saying before, I like that there is definitely a difference between them. I think what you're seeing is probably just preference. Like you said, you're classic sniper.
Yeah, I agree. It's probably just personal preference and kind of what I am comfortable with or what I've seen for a long time in FPS games.
I will say this. I think that with the increased scope for Widow, I'm very excited about it, just because they're going to be able to zoom in quicker to my Winston getting right up in their face. So it's all good news to me.
Well, if it brings back the fantastic aerial snipes that we were seeing at launch, that'll be good for the highlight reels at least.
Oh, the 360 no-scopes?
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be quite that drastic, though. So one other character got some love. Fill us in on what they did to Junkrat.
So Junkrat had a, I'd say maybe semi-controversial. I haven't seen a whole lot of complaints about it, but it really, you know, depends on your skill level in the game, honestly. We saw just one change to him, and that is on his Riptire, his ultimate ability. It actually activates more quickly now. So if you're familiar with Junkrat, he has this Riptire, which is his ultimate, in which he basically has an animation. He pulls the tire off his back. He kind of kickstarts it with a motor, and then it takes off. But this entire process of him, you know, from the moment you hit the ult to when it actually starts taking off, there's like a couple seconds in between. And apparently with this new update and this new balance to Junkrat, he does that a lot faster now. Now, to all the people out there that are terrified, that hate the Riptire, the sound of that motor going off is something you hear in your nightmares. This is not good news because, you already hate it. However, going back to what Jeff and I talk a lot about the meta, which is the high-level skills of the top players in the world and kind of where a lot of these balances and changes come from, we weren't really seeing, as far as I know, a whole lot of Junkrat play. And, with a character that was previously buffed up like Mei, they made, very, very simple change to her, and predominantly it was her ult is just, a couple meters wider radius, and all of a sudden we're seeing a gigantic amount of Mei play in the meta, which is really amazing how you can make a very slight change and it'll completely change the effect of character selection and what people feel is going to be a little more competitive. So, yeah, even though it's just a slight change to Junkrat's Riptire, a little faster, I think that if on the more casual level, it's not going to make much a difference. I mean, you're just, you're going to be able to either get away from it or not. It's not like the tire moves faster. But to the people that are maybe a little higher skill level and able to utilize cover and really, really just squeeze out the maximum amount of timing with every character that they play, I think this might be something that's going to be very, very beneficial to kind of pushing Junkrat more into the meta than we're seeing him previously.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as frustrating as it can be to play against a Junkrat with, getting Riptired, it's a devastating ult. But compared to how it felt at launch, I think it's definitely starting to feel a little bit weaker, just because it's easy to kill if you know to look for it, and Junkrat's a sitting duck while he's piloting the thing. So, I oftentimes will seek out the enemy Junkrat when I hear him ulting, which is not what you typically do with some of the other ults in the game. So I think this change is interesting. I mean, I like Junkrat's kit overall, but you're right that he was struggling a little bit in the meta in terms of the high-end selections. Yeah, I think this could make him a little bit more effective in some of those frantic final point combat situations where you're just like running out and trying to launch the ult and just get a couple of kills. And right now, I mean, Junkrat would often just put the thing down on the ground and it'd get killed right away, and then he goes from 100% to 0 on his ult meter. So it's a huge letdown to just lose your ult like that. You mentioned Mei coming into the meta. That's definitely part of it, was the buff to her ult, but I also think that it's kind of a domino effect from seeing a lot tankier comps on the other side. So Mei is a good counter to tanks and to Ana. So, there's always a lot of factors that go into it. But, I mean, I'm just curious to get your take. Do you think that this small change will be enough to bring him in line with some of the more played damage dealers in the attack class? I mean, right now, it's almost exclusively the attack class aside from Mei, as you said. Yeah,
it's really hard to say because, it's one of those things where the changes and the benefits of some of the changes, we have the change itself, and then we have the benefit that it creates. And for Mei, the change itself was the increase in her radius, but the benefit is that the actual size of a lot of the points, especially like we talked about on the last episode, the capture point maps are almost completely covered with her ult. This change on Junkrat is simply a timing thing. It's him doing it a little faster. So I feel that a good player is still probably able to use their Twitch abilities to stop the tire, stop it in its tracks, blow it up. Because like I said, the speed of the tire hasn't changed. The strength of it hasn't changed. So I don't know. I mean, it really comes down to the very, very specific abilities of each character and what people are able to utilize. I don't know if just making him get it out there a little faster, because the tire is still very vulnerable, and if you're not doing it from a very close range, it's very easy to take down. So, or at least for a high-level player. So I don't know if it's going to be as drastic of a change as the Mei ult was. I guess we'll see, but all in all, I mean, at least on a very general level, maybe not at the highest skill level, I feel having it come out a little faster will at least get to see Junkrat maybe picked a little more. But yeah, it's interesting. You know, with every rebalance, as we said, it's a domino effect. There might be another character who gets a slight buff that just makes it easier to counter Junkrat. So we're seeing a lot of this rock, paper, scissors type situations every patch that we see balances in. And I don't know if the Junkrat Riptire is enough of a change to make him more viable on the high-end scene. But I guess we'll see. You know, there's a lot of tournaments going on, and we're seeing constant changes patch to patch with comp selections on these high-end tournaments. So
yeah, I mean, one thing is for sure that they're taking a look at some of the defense characters, which I had been harping on for months now. It feels like that across the board, the defense characters were lacking in terms of selection and just in terms of potency, I think. So they're definitely taking a look at some of them and doing it in ways that may not have been obvious at first. You know, they're not just buffing damage or doing something as simple as that, but just tweaking small timing on little mechanics that could have big differences. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. I'm interested to track that for sure.
Same here. And just before we get to the main event, which is the Halloween update, there were some other small changes in this patch, so we'll kind of run through those real quick. One of them is that leaderboards have been added to the game to show the top players and of each region. So that's pretty cool. It's another great way to kind of get involved in the Overwatch community, see who the top players in your region are, see, you know, the constantly changing ranks of these players. So I think that's a pretty cool, you know, small addition that is very welcome. I mean, Overwatch, outside of its casual nature, is also extremely competitive. So if you're into that sort of thing, that's a great way to keep track of it in-game.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty cool little addition. I mean, it just helps to kind of build a community and kind of create that awareness. You know, right now, aside from the players on your team and on the other team, I don't necessarily feel like it's a community game. I often wonder exactly what qualifies as being in that general chat on the menu. So this will add a little bit to that, I think. And, you know, if you're a competitive player, it'll give you an idea of where you stand and how far off you are from being one of the top players in your region.
For sure. And then some of the other changes we've seen, team names can now be edited in custom games. So there are definitely those out there that play a lot more of the custom games. You have a group of friends, maybe get together on the weekends, start making some crazy rules. So now you can edit team names. I think that's pretty cool. And we actually saw some changes in the sound design for the voice lines for a few different instances. One of them is that they raised the volume of Hanzo's Dragon Strike voice line while he's wearing the Okami and Lone Wolf skin. So for those who are familiar with Hanzo, he does have a couple legendary skins where he wears a kind of a wolf fur on top of his head. And when you use his ultimate with this skin on, it actually is a completely different voice line. It goes from the dragons to the wolf animation. You hear wolves howling. Super, super cool. But I guess maybe the volume was a little too low. So, you know, you don't want something like a change in your skin to affect gameplay. And the voice lines are a huge part of being able to know what's going on in the game on the fly. So we saw an increase to the volume in that. And then also, and I like this a lot because it kind of adds a little more life and personality to the game, heroes that are hit by Ana's Nano Boost, her ultimate, actually now have a new voice line that informs all the other players on their team that basically they have the Nano Boost. I think that this is really, really cool because outside of the ridiculously loud sound effect you hear when someone gets Nano Boosted, I mean, they're glowing blue, red if you're looking at the enemy do it, and it's very obvious visually what's happening. But if you can hear that voice line happening, that's kind of just a quick way to kind of hear which teammate it is that got Nano Boosted, and just in that situation that's great in Overwatch, being super aware of what's going on through both sight and sound. So I think that was a pretty cool change as well.
Yeah, a lot of these little changes don't get the hype as the character rebalancing, but it definitely helps to kind of create a better feel and just a general enjoyment to the game. A couple of the smaller updates that I'm pretty excited about, they are adding a static camera in spectate mode, That is thrilling to me because spectate mode so far has just been staring at the back of one of your teammates' characters. If it's like Reinhardt, for example, you basically can't see anything. So spectate mode had been pretty underwhelming. I think the static camera, and then to go along with that, the camera movement has been improved in spectator mode. So I'm pretty excited about that for, when you join a game and you're waiting for your friends to finish the game they're in. That'll be pretty enjoyable. And then the other slight change, not just for this Halloween event, but going forward with all events, everything in the hero gallery that you're unlocking, there's going to be a little icon next to any like skins or voice lines or anything like that is associated with like part of an event. So like your summer games or Halloween skins, you'll be able to just see the little icon and know, okay, I've got everything unlocked for this character, or where was the summer game skin for this character? You can scroll down the list and see the little torch. So it's just a quality of life improvement, but I think it'll make it a little bit quicker and more enjoyable. You never want to get hung up on the UI.
Yeah, I actually really love that addition that they made. Like you said, it seems like one of these small little changes to the UI, but things like that, for me, someone who gets really excited about new skins and voice lines and things like that in Overwatch every time they come up with either a seasonal event or some of our patches, like we see new emotes and animations and things like that. A way to keep it organized is really awesome. And yeah, it's kind of cool because I think with especially maybe a year or two down the road when we've seen maybe 8 to 9 seasonal events happening, it's a really, really good way to kind of keep track of it. The interesting thing about these, for example, the summer games, even though the summer games are over and you can no longer unlock those emotes and animations and skins that you hadn't gotten during the games, they are still viewable in the hero gallery. So I think they're kind of leaving the option open to maybe make them available again later down the road. And having something as simple as an icon to kind of know what content is from what particular season or what particular event that was going on at the time that it came out is a great way to kind of plan ahead. Speaking of which, and this kind of will roll into our next topic, which is the Halloween event, there looks like they are going to start, or at least they're experimenting with some of these seasonal event downloads, being able to purchase the loot with in-game credits, which is what we're seeing right now. So even though some of the prices are a little more expensive for the more popular ones, I think this is a kind of a good middle ground to reach and a good compromise for, there were a lot of people complaining, I can't spend in-game credits, so I can't get the loot I want, and I have a very limited time to do it. But then, obviously, the great folks at Blizzard want you to play the game more to actually earn it, and the rarity of it is kind of held strong when you can't just easily purchase all of your new seasonal loot, so everybody just has everything. So I think this is a kind of good middle ground.
Yeah, I noticed that as well, and it does seem to be about 3 times more expensive than the typical skins. So it's definitely not something you're going to be able to just run through and buy all of them right away. You're right about that. They want you playing during the event, and that's definitely going to be the easiest way to earn most of them. But, if there's just one you've got to have, and it's like the last week or last day of the event, at least now you do have that option. That's pretty cool because, the idea of sinking real-life money into loot boxes and still not being assured of getting the skin you want is frustrating at best. So yeah, I think that's probably an appropriate way to deal with the situation that was kind of posed to them by the Summer Games, the first event.
Yeah, spending $10 to $20 worth in basically dupe boxes is not a good feeling. So I think this might be a little more well-received.
I'll take your word for it.
Well, that being said, let's go ahead and move into the main event here, which is the new seasonal event, the biggest change in this patch, and that is the Overwatch Halloween Terror. So there had been rumors of a Halloween update coming. Blizzard's very well known across many of their games for having seasonal events. First that we saw was the Summer Games. Coincidentally fell around the same time as the Summer Olympics. So a really, really cool way to kind of incorporate what's going on seasonally into the game. And now, at the time of this recording, it is October. So we now have seen the first Halloween-themed Overwatch update, which is the Halloween Terror. And with this, we get a slew of different things. Just like the summer games, we get a whole bunch of skins, voice lines, emotes, heroic intros, and they're all Halloween-themed, which is super cool, because with a game like this, with so many characters who have just are dripping with personality and just, their own sort of style and feel and colors, we are now glossing that over with a layer of Halloween skins and themed animations, and it's really, really cool, and I think people are very, very excited about it.
Yeah, as a fan of most of Blizzard's games, I can't say I'm surprised to see this event. I pretty much expected it, and along with the event, I expected some skins, voice lines, and the other loot. But they didn't disappoint. I think it's all definitely very cool. A couple of skins that jumped off the page to me right away. I'm a big fan of the Witch Mercy skin. She's definitely up to no good. I really like the possessed Pharah. The glow coming off of that skin is pretty awesome, I think. And then the headless Pumpkin Reaper is a must-have, in my opinion. Which ones have stood out to you so far?
Well, all the ones you mentioned are amazing, of course. I do love that Witch Mercy. Her staff that she normally carries for healing and for increasing damage actually turns into a broomstick, which is a pretty cool change. And Reaper, of course, is absolutely amazing with the pumpkin head, and then he actually has candles on the top, orange candles on the top of his shotguns as well. For me, I actually really, really enjoy some of the more subtle ones. Like Ana has one that is a ghoul costume, which basically takes the helmet that she wears in one of her other legendary skins and changes it into kind of a jack-o'-lantern smile. So you can pair that with her new emote, in which she basically has a pumpkin filled with candy, and she just starts dropping it like she's handing it out to kids. Just kind of lends to that whole mother feel. So I really like that one. Of course, I think in the spotlight for this patch, the skins of Junkrat and Roadhog, the Dr. Junkenstein, and then the Junkenstein monster for Roadhog, really, really cool. It's obviously a reference to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and of course the movie that was based off of it from the early 1900s, and it's just a really cool Frankenstein kind of pair, and those characters already being somewhat related to each other in the story, it's just perfect. You have the mad scientist and you have the Frankenstein monster, so really, really cool skins. And then the one that made me laugh, actually, there is a skin for Soldier 76 called Immortal, which basically makes him look undead with the white skin. But what really makes me laugh, and I think it's completely fitting, is that his traditional jacket and suit that he wears on his normal skin has been replaced with a red jacket, red pants that, it's not even arguable. It's Michael Jackson Thriller, which is hilarious to see that on Soldier 76. So, yeah, those are some of the skins I like. I'm really excited about it. It's a lot more than I expected, and they got really creative with them.
Yeah, I think you're right. I just kind of skimmed through, and I saw the Soldier one. It didn't jump off the page to me at first. But now that you mentioned it, as soon as you started talking about the jacket, I realized that I had completely missed it. That is really fantastic. That's definitely Thriller.
It may have it may have been a little out of character, but I would have liked to see maybe a Thriller dance emote for Soldier 76, but that might be asking a little too much.
Yeah. Well, one other thing I thought was pretty funny, there's a victory pose from D.Va where she's giving a peace sign from inside a grave. I thought that was pretty funny because D.Va is probably one of the priorities as far as never disappointing with any sort of content.
Yeah, that the victory pose with her is actually something that every single character in the game has. It's called RIP, and it's basically a tombstone with usually the character's hand coming out of the ground, very classic horror movie style. And definitely check those out in the hero gallery. They're all really good. Some of them are really, really funny based on the character. The one that you mentioned with Diva specifically, if you kind of rotate it in the hero gallery and the back of the tombstone, there's actually what are clearly Doritos potato chips, which, as we've mentioned in the past, Diva being a pro gamer, they like making that connection, and especially the community likes making the connection of her drinking Mountain Dew and eating Doritos. So that's just kind of another silly little reference that you're really only ever going to see in the hero gallery.
Yeah, I caught that. It's pretty fitting for sure. So let's finally get to the new game mode. Let's get to this Brawl.
So when we're talking about the Overwatch Brawls, they have their weekly Brawls, and they're generally... I feel like there is definitely criticism in the community that it's just pretty much custom games, character limits. You see an increase in HP or low cooldowns, and they'll really play with the themes that way. The biggest change that we had ever seen was in the summer games. There was a full month-long brawl of Lucio Ball, which we've talked about in the past. We really, really liked it. It's super cool, all playing Lucio, a soccer-type game with the mechanics of Lucio, which, of course, was awesome. And for the Brawl for the Halloween, it is actually... They definitely put even more work into it. It is called Junkenstein's Revenge, and this Brawl is just awesome. Guys, if you have not tried it yet, if you just kind of are that player that goes straight to quick play and you don't even mess with the Brawls, I highly, highly recommend trying this one out because they went all out on this one. It is a themed Brawl completely based off of the Frankenstein story. And basically, to kind of explain it in a nutshell, the whole idea behind the game is that you are in a 4-man team. So if you and 3 friends could get together, and the only characters that you can play on this team are Anna, Hanzo, Soldier 76, and McCree. And they each have kind of their theme, the archer, there's the soldier, there's the alchemist, which is Anna. And it's basically themed where these 4 characters are fighting off Junkenstein, his monster, and his allies as well. And it's completely narrated in a really, really cool way, classic horror movie style. When you go into the hero selection screen, it's actually in a black and white filter to make it look like an old movie. Super cool. And they actually have a modified version of Eichenwald in which you are basically, it's the first PvE co-op mode in Overwatch, which basically means it's you and your friends playing against bots, computer-controlled enemies. And if you're familiar with Gears of War's Horde mode or any similar mode that has happened since then in Halo or things like that, that's basically what it is. It's waves of enemies coming in with a few of the main characters kind of peppered in as bosses. It is so much fun, and I've been enjoying the hell out of it since this update came out.
I am really, really impressed with what they did here. You mentioned the black and white filter. They just do a really good job of making you feel it as soon as you load in. You mentioned it's the first co-op versus AI Brawl, so very different than what's in the game right now. And I almost feel like they've been kind of lowering the bar by giving us these barely noteworthy brawls in between events, because Lucio Ball was just so cool, and then it went down to these brawls that I haven't even, I'll just check and see what it is, and then I don't play them. And then the Halloween event comes out, and they hit us with this, which they've clearly been working on for a long time. And I'm really impressed with it. I had a lot of fun with it. I'm pretty impressed with the depth of it. There's definitely a lot of strategy and communication required as you scale up in difficulty. I think on the easy mode, you can pretty much just run around and do whatever you want. But it definitely gets to the point where you need to start calling out and kind of assigning sides, and if you actually plan on beating it as it scales up into hard mode and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's also interesting about it, even though it's definitely more on the humorous and kind of parody side, it's the first kind of semblance we've ever seen of something like a story mode in Overwatch. It is completely narrated. The characters have voice lines. throughout the game that you play, that they're talking with each other. You actually can hear McCree and Hanzo talking crap to each other, like, is your arm getting tired? It's super cool because the personality of the characters remains the same as you would know them, but they kind of fit it into this whole Frankenstein type story where you're basically fighting off these zombie robots that are, heading towards this gate that you have to protect as those four characters. So it's a little bit of narrated storyline mixed with tower defense, but also completely based around the mechanics of Overwatch as well. So each character feels the same, they play the same, and it's really the absolute perfect example of a themed brawl, a themed event that is a lot of fun to play. And one of the interesting things about it that I've noticed, specifically for me, I've found myself just at this point in Overwatch really wanting to improve more with some of the Twitch characters, the characters that you need to be, a little better with your aim and aren't as dependent on your abilities, their cooldowns, and then your tankiness if you're one of the more tanky characters. But, with the characters of Soldier 76, Anna, McCree, and Hanzo, they all share one thing, and that is that they are all Twitch characters. So I find myself, as I'm playing this mode, getting better with all of those characters. So it's one of those things where you can play this mode over and over again, and then when you do eventually go back into quick play or competitive mode, whether you're peppering it in between the brawls, you actually do get better with those characters because it's basically target practice on these zombie robots that don't fight back. So yeah, I think it's a great mix of being able to test your skill in the game while also having fun with a really cool themed brawl, and having it also another layer of just great storytelling and just the character personalities coming through as well. So all in all, 2 thumbs up on that one. I just love this brawl so much.
Yeah, I could probably try and argue with you a little bit about defining Hanzo as a Twitch character, but I take your point. And it is definitely good practice. I mean, you're not going to have a lot of other opportunities where you're going to have more targets moving around at you in a shorter amount of time. So I definitely felt like it was a good way to, at the very least, get warmed up before you're going to go into a competitive match. I also thought one thing that I thought was really funny, I mean, it's pretty obvious, but there's Zombie Omnix. Just hilarious.
Yeah, I noticed that too.
and then I really like the heroes and the way they introduce them. I mean, you're right that it's the closest thing they have to a story mode, and so like when Reaper comes out first as the first hero enemy, he comes out and he gets introduced, and then he's got all his abilities, including his ult. So when you get to hard mode, you want to keep an eye out for that. But, overall, the only complaint I would have, I guess, I do wish you could choose from more than the 4 characters they give you. Like, even if they still limit it to a 4-person team, but, I was just thinking, man, if I could play as Mei, I could really give him hell, or, Reinhardt would do well here. But I'm sure that there's good reasons for them limiting it to these 4 characters, so it definitely doesn't take away from the enjoyment of the game mode, and I'll just have to imagine how good I could do if I could play maybe Pharah.
Maybe, I was actually thinking the same thing while I was playing through and fighting all of them. I'm like, man, if I just posted up here as a Bastion, I feel this mode would be easy. Which,
no. All right, you just explained it. I now understand.
Well, to that point, and on a more serious note, this is a great example of, people always throw out their ideas. Oh, they should have a capture the flag. They should have all these different modes that we see in other FPSs. But where Overwatch is more MOBA influenced, so you see more character abilities, and while it is an FPS, the characters you play are vastly different from each other. I think this is a great example. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Blizzard brought this idea to the table and it started with you being able to pick any characters. But as with any other game mode that we're pretty familiar with in FPSs, I think some of the abilities that the characters have, like Tracer, for example, with her extreme mobility, really throw off the balance of different game modes. So something like this, I mean, I know it's only a brawl and it's not going to be permanent, but I feel like we might see more character limitations to kind of play with the balance of some of the other modes. And if you're playing a mode that is based on killing other characters, being able to choose a character like Mercy isn't really going to help you a whole lot. So they probably play tested with a few different characters, saw who could fit in the story, and those 4 are the ones that they figured would probably work the best. But that being said, I don't completely disagree. I mean, if you're able to just jump in there with Reinhardt, that could definitely change the game entirely.
Zenyatta would be so overpowered.
Oh my God, yes.
Just Discord down the enemy heroes. So one other thing, I'm probably just going to upset myself by asking you, but any news on Sombra?
So there have been basically rumors. I don't know if you had noticed it. I know you've been really busy lately, but there had been a leak, a photo leak. Somebody, and you know, there's, of course, it's the internet. There's always arguments whether it's fake or not. But basically, it is somebody who took a picture of their computer screen, and it's a very, very convincing photo of a new character who is, even in the screenshot, described as Sombra, who is going to, quote, hack their way into the patch a little later. The actual character itself looks very much, it looks like a direct screenshot from the game, the art style, everything about it. So I don't know if this is an actual leak or something that was fabricated. I mean, if it was fabricated, it is very, very convincing. By the time this recording comes out, maybe she'll have been released, but based on the fresh new Halloween stuff that just came out, I think that they might wait a little while. But outside of that, as far as anything from Blizzard, no, there hasn't really been any news on Sombra. So if this leak is real, that's about the most we're going to get this week, I think.
Simply stunning.
Well, on that positive note, that pretty much wraps up our Halloween episode. Is there anything else you want to add?
I apologize. I'm just getting a little bit bitter about Sombra. No, the patch is awesome. I'm really excited to get more time with it, but definitely not disappointed.
Yeah, me either. And if you guys have any specific skins or emotes, I know there's a whole lot. That's actually over 100 different unlockable loot items that you can get with this new Halloween patch, and it's all going to be available until November 1st. So definitely get at it, play the game, try to get your loot boxes, rank up, and get as much as you can, because as you know, with the summer games, the stuff is limited. Even though now they allow you to use in-game credits to buy a lot of the stuff, in-game credits still require you to play the game quite a bit. So get out there. Let us know what you guys think of some of the new additions, whether it be the Halloween update or some of the rebalancing and other patch changes that we've seen more recently. You can reach me and Jeff. I am at HappyJamOP for Twitter. And Jeff?
I'm at TruthEaterOP.
And then, of course, you can always reach us on our website, oppodcast.com. We're on Facebook as well, the OP Overwatch Podcast. Check it out. Let us know what you guys think. This new patch, I can't say it enough, has just been absolutely amazing.
I actually wanted to stop you real quick. One other thing. I wanted to say a huge thank you to Matt Bunker, who became our first Patreon supporter. That is something.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that is something. We definitely did not start doing this for any reason other than we thought it would be a lot of fun, and we're really excited about Overwatch. But we appreciate it, and that's definitely something that we're going to work on fleshing out in the next few weeks here. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you so much, Matt, for that support. We, of course, appreciate that. We have a lot of fun doing these podcasts, Jeff and I, with any free time that we can get. We love playing the game, discovering new strategies, and, we get excited about every single episode that we record. So thank you, and thank you to all of our listeners who, just download every week and listen to us and give us your feedback. We really do appreciate that. That's going to wrap up this episode. Thank you all very much for listening, and we look forward to talking to you next time.